Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest, most insane economic bubbles in modern history. And, of course, the absolutely devastating crash that came after. It's a story of how a country's dream of global dominance turned into a nightmare that's lasted for decades.
Okay, so to really get a feel for this, you have to picture it. We're in the 1980s. Tokyo is, well, it's the vibrant, beating heart of an economic miracle. Think neon lights everywhere, packed nightclubs. For a whole generation that grew up with nothing but success, it honestly felt like the party was never, ever going to end.
And this really tells the whole story, doesn't it? It's like a tale of two completely different Japans. On one hand, you've got this incredible, almost unimaginable wealth, and on the other, just a devastating, seemingly endless fall. The contrast is it's stark, and it is all too real.
So, yeah, that's the big question, right? And to really wrap our heads around the fall, we've got to start with the incredible rise that came first. All right, let's get into it.
So after World War II, Japan was in ruins, but what happened next? Its transformation was nothing short of astonishing. Yeah, in just a couple of decades, it went from being this war-torn nation to a straight-up global economic powerhouse.
Just look at that number, 435%. A big part of this was support from the US, which kept the yen's value low on purpose to help Japan's exports. And because of that, Japan's economy didn't just grow, it absolutely exploded. It just blew past other big Western economies to become the second largest in the entire world. And look, this didn't happen by accident. It was really this perfect storm of factors. You had a super motivated workforce, a government that was laser-focused on industry, this unique corporate system called keiretsu, where companies all work together, and then you had the Bank of Japan basically pointing money at all the right industries. And the goal? Super simple. Take over the world with amazing exports from brands we all know today, right? Toyota, Sony, the list goes on.
So by the time we get to the 80s, this amazing success story starts to change into something else. It becomes this wild, speculative frenzy, the kind of thing that's hard to even believe. And the numbers, wow, the numbers are just staggering. Seriously, just let that sink in for a second. The land value of this one small island nation was worth 4 times more than all the land in the entire United States. It's just insane. All this money was just pouring into real estate and the stock market, and it pushed prices to levels that had absolutely nothing to do with reality anymore.
Okay, and this is how you know things are getting completely out of hand. The speculation got so crazy, so profitable, that huge car companies like Nissan were actually making more money from their investments than from, building cars. It's like the real economy, the one that makes stuff, was shoved into the back seat, and the casino economy was driving the car.
And it wasn't just stocks and real estate. No. This mania, it seeped into everything. I'm talking about things like luxury golf club memberships. And get this, that little niche market just for golf memberships was worth $200 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire economic output of Taiwan at the time. It was just pure, uncut excess.
Okay, but there was a problem. This absolute dominance in exports, it was starting to cause some major friction. Japan's allies, especially the US, were getting pretty frustrated. And this all led to a crucial moment, a turning point that, looking back now, would have just catastrophic consequences for Japan.
And right here you can see the chain reaction perfectly. So in '85, to smooth things over with its trading partners, Japan agrees to make its currency stronger. But then, the Bank of Japan totally panicked. They were terrified this would cause a recession, so what did they do? They slammed the brakes on interest rates, cutting them way down and making money super, super cheap. And where did all that cheap money go? Not into building more factories. Nope. It poured jet fuel right onto that raging speculative fire.
So by 1989, the people in charge finally wake up and realize, whoa, this is way out of control. They tried to pump the brakes by raising interest rates, but it was just far, far too late. The damage was done. The bubble was about to pop.
And then it happened. The very first day of trading in 1990, the bottom fell out. Panic just ripped through the market. A complete free fall. The party was over. And it ended brutally. The amount of wealth that was just destroyed, it's hard to even comprehend. $2 trillion gone in just 1 year. This wasn't just numbers. This was the life savings of millions of regular people just wiped out almost overnight.
And this wasn't just some market correction, not a little dip that would bounce back. Nope, this was the start of something much worse.
decades of economic and social stagnation. It was a wound that, honestly, Japan has never really recovered from.
That corporate dominance we talked about? Gone. It just vanished. These numbers really tell the whole story. Back in '89, Japan had 32 of the world's top 50 biggest companies, and today, just one. Those giants that once ruled the global economy were just brought to their knees.
And again, we have to remember, this was never just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This collapse had a real, devastating impact on people's lives. We're talking hundreds of thousands of businesses going bankrupt, millions of people losing their jobs. That whole idea of lifetime employment that was so central to Japanese society shattered. And the hopelessness that followed was so deep, so profound, that tragically, suicide became the leading cause of death for men between 20 and 44.
And out of this hopelessness, a really tragic social phenomenon was born, one that the world now knows as hikikomori.
Behind that clinical-sounding word, though, are real people, real families in pain. Today, it's estimated that over 600,000 middle-aged people, the generation that grew up in the shadow of this crash, are still living in total isolation. It's a direct and just heartbreaking legacy of the whole thing.
And for decades after the crash, the economy just flatlined. That incredible economic engine that had been roaring for 40 years, well, it could barely even sputter. This created a whole new reality, a new normal of stagnation for a country that had only ever known constant, relentless growth.
At all this long-term economic pressure, it's now spiraled into a full-blown demographic crisis. Younger generations, they look at the financial strain, the uncertainty, and they're just having fewer kids. The result? Japan now has the lowest birth rate it has ever recorded. Ever.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, it's a really powerful and, frankly, sobering story about how fast success can sour into excess. And maybe more importantly, it shows how a few bad decisions made in a moment of panic can end up casting a shadow that lasts for generations.
Because ultimately, Japan's story isn't just about Japan, is it? It's a huge cautionary tale. It forces all of us to look at our own economies, to look for our own potential bubbles, and to start asking some really tough questions about what our prosperity is actually built on. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.